Hello everyone, it's Jamal Thomas. Welcome to the Progressive Soapbox. So let me check my sound first. Guys, coming up this evening, I have the awesome, bad at doing two things at once. I'm sorry, the moment I shift, everything else goes with it. Tim Canova is going to be here at 1 p.m. today, so that should be amazing. Talking about the events that's taking place in Florida. Good, sound is great. Also, while I'm talking about it, if you like this video, please feel free to share, and please feel free to like. I don't like telling people like the video in the beginning because I feel it's presumptuous. At the end of the day, I guess all I can say is if you like it, and if you're one of those people who find yourself consistently coming to my content, even if you don't like everything, even if you don't agree with everything, please feel free to subscribe. You know, I, and along with a bunch of other lefties and some other anti-establishment types, have been trumpeting a war against war. War matters more. Someone said to me on Twitter, I forgot the guy's name, I'm sorry, he was polite, and he said, the Tucker Carlson stuff is bothering me. It's bothering me too. It's bothering me that I have to use Tucker Carlson to make that point. It is a weird series of events when Tucker Carlson is the voice of reason from the standpoint of war. The moment that he deviates from that standpoint, he's probably going to be out of alignment with my value system. But on that very specific point, they're talking about murdering human beings. I will take every brick, every rock, every stick, every bat, anything I can get my hand on and swing if I can stop them from doing that. If Tucker Carlson just happens to be a bat, I will use Tucker Carlson for that. I don't care. War matters more. War matters more. I want you to take a look at this. This gentleman, Belgian journalist, Pierre, I think it's Piccinin, was held hostage for 5 months. Listen to what he says. Now, he's speaking in French, so you're going to have to look at the little subtitles. But look at the subtitles. Look at what the subtitles are saying. It's something you're not going to see on America media.
Et surtout lorsque nous avons tenté de fuir à un moment.
By the way, shout out to HB. It's not hard bastard. Shout out to HB for sending me the links to this. I didn't know this video existed. He hooked me up with this video. It's like, here's stuff for your war chest. Well, time to use the war chest. Time to use munitions. This is Pierre Piccinin discussing. All I'm saying, I'll let him talk. Listen to the story that he tells from his experience being there, being captive with the terrorists.
Moment parce que nous craignions réellement pour notre vie. Après avoir été repris, nous avons été sérieusement punis. Les mains attachées dans le dos, des coups sur la colonne vertébrale, des tentatives de nous faire avouer aussi que nous avions caché une arme, une grenade à main qu'on ne la possédait pas. On n'aurait pas pu répondre et mettre un terme aux sévices que nous subissions, notamment avec un ciseau, on nous coupait le bout de la langue, on entaillait le bout de la langue pour nous faire parler, c'est très douloureux.
Vous allez bien ce soir?
Nous allons bien, oui.
Pierre Piccinin, ce midi sur RTL, en vous appuyant sur ce que vous avez entendu durant votre séquestration, vous affirmiez, je cite, que c'est un devoir moral de dire que ce n'est pas le régime syrien de Bachar el-Assad qui a perpétré une attaque chimique en Syrie. C'est un devoir moral de dire que ce n'est pas le régime syrien de Bachar el-Assad.
I want that part to linger on the screen for a bit. My argument, everybody's argument, the lefties' argument, hasn't been that we know exactly what took place. Our argument has been that they don't either. They're making the shit up as they go along. And there's just as much reason to believe that the terrorists themselves had access to these weapons, which we know, and the terrorists themselves were the only ones who had anything to gain from releasing these weapons. I say this in the face of Mattis saying we have no idea who released those weapons. I think he does. But at the very least, he's admitting that we didn't know. We didn't know. There was no investigation. How could we know? He's saying, look, I was there. Assad didn't do it. From a logical standpoint, I look at this from the standpoint of chess. Would I release a chemical weapon when I know the rest of the world is antsy to take me out that seat? And the one thing that would give them the pretext is releasing a chemical weapon. Cleared 90% of the territory. And all of a sudden, here's a chemical weapon after Donald Trump says he's taking us out of Syria. I'm just making the point that it's more of a conspiracy theory to believe that Assad did it, because it doesn't necessarily follow logically. It makes no sense. Take a look at this story. It is a moral duty to state that it is not the Syrian regime of Bashar al-Assad that perpetrated a chemical attack in Syria. I'm watching this play out over again. If you get sick of me doing these videos, I'm sorry. My hope is that 1, 2, 3, 4, some random person would see it and be like, holy shit, he's right. Or, holy shit, I didn't think of that. Something. Anything. What is it like to be in pain? What is it like to kill 1 million people? I'm trying to prevent that. Let's let him finish.
Qui a perpétré une attaque chimique en Syrie. Ce soir, votre compagnon d'infortune, le journaliste italien Domenico Chirico, dit qu'affirmer cela serait une folie, qu'il n'a eu aucune preuve pour pouvoir l'affirmer. Il dit ça sur le site de la Stampa. Quelle est votre réaction?
J'ai été très occupé aujourd'hui, je n'ai pas encore eu le temps de téléphoner à Domenico. Je suis un petit peu étonné parce que nous étions ensemble lorsque nous avons entendu cette conversation, donc je vais lui téléphoner tout à l'heure.
C'était une discussion de plusieurs hommes par Skype en anglais.
Et effectivement, il y avait une discussion qui impliquait le général de l'armée libre qui nous séquestrait et un officier d'Al-Farouk. Et de cette...
The Free Syrian Army is an army that's supported by the United States. They call it the Free Syrian Army. It's Orwellian. Like, it's built propaganda into it. They call these guys moderates. These guys are terrorists. Call them what they are. There may have been a segment of the population that was pissed off with Assad and tried to protest and everything else. But fact is, the United States have been supporting all of the groups. They're saying that they were supporting all of the groups. They wanted to take him down. Not to mention help from Turkey, which I honestly thought Turkey was allied with Russia. I've been disabused of that perspective. They were trying to take him out that seat. Saudi Arabia, Qatar, United States, Britain, France. All of these governments were trying to take his ass out of that seat. And they were supporting anybody they could support. Now, the fact that he's saying the Free Syrian Army puts edge on that puts teeth to it. Because the Russian case was, this is a false flag, the United States is making this up. Now, he's saying the organization associated with the United States was using chemical weapons. Russia has said that the United States was working with agencies or these groups trying to take down the Syrian government, working with them with chemical weapons. Now, I don't know if the United States was doing that. It's less important to me if it was doing it, because I would imagine that the United States may do that. I'm cynical about what we may do in order to affect change of regime in Syria. Whether we knew it and didn't do anything about it, or whether we assisted in doing it, both of those things, for the most part, boil down to the same thing. It wasn't the Assad government. This was more so likely done by the terrorists themselves, as they have the only ones with the only thing to gain. They're facing oblivion. They're about to be wiped out. And I'm supposed to believe that after this hundreds of thousands of people have been killed, that this one last moment they're saying, no. Either it was staged or either it was actually a chemical weapons attack. The case that people need to make, however, is that it was Syria. And I'm making the point that it makes no logical sense for it to be Syria. 90% of the cleared, government stable, the terrorists are being essentially murdered or killed off. Why would they do it? That's the one damning, lingering question that nobody can answer. And ultimately, the only way that you can get that to work is to say he was bloodthirsty, he just was an animal, he was a monster, he was this, he was that. He wasn't a human being. He was so bloodthirsty that he didn't care about the geopolitical implications of him doing that. That makes no sense. Jesus Christ, it makes no sense. That is the dumbest narrative. And yet people just take it and say, yeah, okay, well, I guess he's bloodthirsty. Guess he's a monster.
De cette conversation, il est très très clair que Il ressort clairement que le régime d'Al-Assad n'est pas responsable de la diffusion de cette arme chimique dans la banlieue de Damas.
Dominique Quirico dit qu'il n'y a pas de fiabilité ni de fiabilité sur l'identité des personnes qui parlaient à ce moment-là et que donc il n'y a aucune preuve ce soir.
Alors,
I kind of like this. He's challenging what he's saying. He's saying, look, how do you know that? The person who was there with you is saying that it is, you shouldn't say that. That being said, though, the person who was with him is at the very least verifying that the conversation took place. You may not be able to identify the identity of the person. Fair enough. That's fair criticism. But it took place. Meaning he did hear this. This was something that he heard standing there with another person who also heard it in objective reality. The other person says, you can't verify the existence you can't verify who that person is. So how can you attribute it to so-and-so? It may be, it may not be. Fair enough. Fair enough. Let's hear his response.
Bon, c'est son point de vue peut-être, je ne sais pas, je ne l'ai pas encore contacté sur ce propos. Je pense qu'il y a peut-être eu un malentendu dans la déclaration qu'il a faite, parce que nous étions ensemble au moment où nous avons entendu.
Mais vous maintenez votre position?
Je ne peux que témoigner de ce que j'ai entendu.
Ce n'est pas le régime de Bachar el-Assad, selon vous, qui a perpétré cette attaque chimique?
Selon ces officiers de la rébellion et ce qu'ils ont dit, non, ce n'est pas le régime. Ce qui aurait été d'ailleurs suicidaire de sa part. Je pense que certains États n'attendent que cela pour en découdre, pour des raisons qui sont peut-être pas toujours très claires.
Listen to what he said. He's like, look, I was there. I was being held by terrorists. And those terrorists were saying chemical attack. Like, I feel where he's coming from on this. He's like, who else would it be? Who else would it be? And beyond who else would it be? It would have been suicidal for Assad to have done such a thing.
Clair non plus. Le régime ne pouvait pas leur faire plus beau cadeau que d'utiliser cette arme qui, de toute façon, dans la banlieue de Damas, militairement ne leur rapportait pas grand-chose en termes de gains.
Brièvement, pensez-vous ce soir que la communauté internationale peut encore intervenir et soutenir l'opposition syrienne, ou cela paraît totalement impossible vu l'état de cette opposition?
Alors cette opposition, elle s'est complètement délitée. En tout cas, l'armée syrienne libre, qui était composée de citoyens en révolte encadrés par des officiers laïcs et des démocrates déserteurs qui voulaient en finir avec ce régime. On ne l'a pas soutenu en son temps. Elle s'est véritablement évaporée et aujourd'hui la révolution est submergée par un banditisme structurel d'une part et d'autre part ces katibas islamistes.
I'm going to read this aloud so people can hear it. This is truly evaporated. Today the revolution is flooded by structural banditry on one hand, and on the other hand, these Islamist brigades. They're not moderates. They're not moderates. Let's keep going.
Qui également viennent de plus en plus de l'étranger, d'Afghanistan, d'Asie centrale. Je pense qu'il serait fou et suicidaire alors pour l'Occident de soutenir ces gens-là.
Pierre Piccinin, une question que beaucoup de téléspectateurs se posent ce soir, c'est que va faire un enseignant d'un athénée de Philippeville en Syrie à 8 reprises alors que l'État belge lui déconseille d'y aller?
Alors il y a l'enseignant évidemment, professeur d'histoire, et puis il y a l'historien et le politologue qui contribuent à différents médias. Bon, j'étais par exemple au Mali ou en Syrie correspondant de The New Times ou d'Afrique-Asie. Voilà, il y a 2 carrières et on essaye de les concilier.
Certaines rumeurs vous dépeignent comme un agent des services secrets français. Ce serait possible cela? Évidemment, un agent secret en général ne le dit pas.
Alors, un agent secret français qui est en train de prendre une position tout à fait contraire à celle de ceux qui sont censés le payer.
Pierre Piccinin, merci.
Different perspective. Do you just completely discount what he's saying? Somebody was there saying, look, it wasn't Assad. Not only would it have been suicidal, I was there. I heard the conversations that these guys were having when they were talking about chemical weapons. It wasn't Assad. And like I said, I like the fact that the guys say, well, wait a minute. Are you certain about this? How do you know it's so-and-so, the guy who's there with you? And the reason why I like this is because at the very least it nails down the fact that the conversation took place. Meaning the other guy who was somewhat, I don't necessarily want to name when I can't necessarily see who it was, fair enough. but you were held by hostage by terrorists. Meaning, even in the other guy saying I'm iffy about saying that confirms the fact that the conversation took place. There's more. There's another one I want to show from abroad. This is a woman from the United Nations. Where is it? Right here. Carla de la Ponte. 2013 chemical attack was done by Syrian rebels, not Assad. She was a UN inspector. Let's take a listen to her also while we're here.
Our investigation for crimes against humanity and war crimes, we collect some witness testimony that that made to appear that some chemical weapons were used, in particular nervine gas. And what appeared on to our investigation that was used by the opponents, by the rebels, and we have no indication at all that the government, Syria, the authority of the Syrian government have used chemical weapons. Of course, now the special commission that the Secretary General put in place will investigate and tell us what it is exactly. But I was a little bit stupefied that the first indication we got, they were about the use of nervine gas by the opponent.
She said she was a bit stupefied. I find that part to be awesome, because she assumed that it was the Syrian government. And she comes back and was like, oh, wow, this looks like it was from the rebels. That was an actual investigation, by the way. That was an actual investigation, not people just spitballing and shooting from the hip. There is a consistent narrative that this is most likely coming from the terrorists. And just to make sure to nail that point home, Mattis admits there was no evidence Assad used poison gas on his own people. That's great. That's great. I'm not going to keep this one long. Here's another one. Turkey. So this one is interesting. I'm going to do a video on this one by itself, but I'll preload it. Turkey calls Syria security leak villainous, blocks YouTube. Now, I would have used a different title for that. The reason I would have used a different title for that, because Turkey in this video was talking about a false flag in Syria, saying that they can create a pretext in order to justify what they were doing and code it and case it as if they're fighting Al-Qaeda. As long as we're fighting Al-Qaeda, no issue. When this was leaked, they shut down the internet in Turkey. And he comes out and screams, "This is villainous! Villainous security leak!" He's flipping out. Gets across the legitimacy of the thing. Meaning his response gets across the legitimacy. If what he should have did was just say, it wasn't us. We don't know who this is. This is bogus. Your response, dude, gets across that it's not bogus, that it's absolutely real, and that you and your gang was calling for false flag. In Syria, by the way. I'll leave it here. I put all the links at the bottom for you guys to see. Let's see. Is anybody here? Great find, Jamal. Merci beaucoup. Actually, that's not my find. HB sent me that. So, good find, HB. Yeah, she said she was stupefied. Well, she was shocked. She was like, whoa, I thought it was Syria. Not so much. Not so much. How many times is the United States going to try the same trick, but this time we're telling the truth? Bullshit. Fucking A, Luca. Fucking A. This time you have a segment of the population that is not lying down on the left and on the right. The question becomes, is it loud enough? Can it get loud enough? Can it get cacophonous enough? Where it starts to bubble up to the top where people are like, wow, there's a rowdy bunch of people on the left and the right flipping out about this war stuff. I don't care who it is. They should scream about this. This is fantastically important. I mean, I can't get across how important this is. I could do 1,000 stories today on this one specific issue, and it would never get across the importance, like of what they're leaking us into. I fight on this particular level because I try to make the point that they never confirmed who did it. They did strikes on something that they did not confirm existed. And Mathis, people who are associated with the administration, have come out and said, we didn't know. We did it anyway. We didn't know. They didn't know. The dead babies, dead babies, dead babies. They didn't know. Same thing here. Fact is, it's much more likely that the terrorists did it. The terrorists are the only people who were in that region who had an interest in doing such a thing. Otherwise, why on earth? It would be suicidal for him to do that. Like, I'm trying to get across to you that if you're a Middle Eastern strongman, you're an autocrat. You've been at war for God knows how long. You've had Qatar, the United States, France, UK, all in your country, sending arms and weapons and resources to terrorists to try to take down your government. You don't want them to take down your government. Otherwise, you would have just left. But you didn't leave. You stayed. And you fought and you fought and you fought because you didn't want, A, to lose your country. That's the first part. But B, I would imagine there's some aspect of you that didn't necessarily also want your country to be taken over by Islamic extremists backed by the United States. I would imagine that to be true. It would be strange to take that disposition and then to turn around and take the disposition of, I am going to do something that creates some semblance of a pretext. I don't think it gives enough of it, but from the standpoint of the Western powers who are looking for a reason to come into the country and murder a lot of people while saying that they're saving a lot of people, that would do it. Now, you've given your weapons you've given up your weapons, meaning the people who are over there with the weapons are most likely the terrorists themselves. It would be suicidal. It would make no sense. There would be a level of cognitive dissonance that would be magnificent with this idea of, I am not stepping down, I'm going to fight this bloody war, but at the same time, I'm going to do something that would allow Western powers to take me out the seat that I've fought so hard to stay in. It makes no sense. And we start looking at the evidence and piecing back the details, it makes even less sense. And it starts making a little bit more sense in a different direction. That these powers wanted him out that seat and was looking for any pretext to do so. Whether they created a pretext or whether they allowed the pretext to take place, certainly there was a pretext. But it didn't necessarily come from Assad. That's what it boils down to. So, I'm going to leave it at that. Yeah, I'm going to leave it at that. So, alright guys. If you enjoy the content, please feel free to share, like, subscribe, and of course, you can always support the Patreon. I know I've been harping on this, but I've been harping on this because I think this is vitally important. I am sorry if the content gets morbid. I am sorry if it goes in a particular direction, but I think it matters. I think it matters. So, alright guys, have a good day. I'll probably see you guys in like 20 minutes or so. I'll send a tweet out when I'm about to go live. Thanks everyone.